Hi everyone, this is Junaid Guide, back at you with another one. Um, in this video I'm going to cover an area which I think is very important to everyone, and it requires individual understanding of these areas and how they work and how these areas can affect your life. Not can affect your life, it does affect your life. It affects your life in ways that you would not understand. It affects your life greatly, but all aspects of all these areas need to be working in unison, in conjunction with each other. One cannot work without the other, and you can't work in one area and have success in the other to have a good outcome of your life. All areas need to be looked at and to be working together collectively. So it's about the dynamics. Written into the fabric of the universe is a mode for survival, for the human being to survive. And this has the same effect with all beings. So we're human beings, and we know there's other creations that's amongst us that this affect, but in respect to the human being and the survival of a human being. It's called the dynamics, and as a dynamic, there's eight. There's 8 realms of the dynamic that intertwine with each other and work conjunctly with each other. So there are eight dynamics, and they make up the areas of human survival. I mean, we gotta survive, and what gives us urge to survive is always an urge towards something what brings about our existence. So the first dynamic is the urge towards existence as oneself. It's the effort to survive as an individual, to be an individual, okay? To attain the highest level of survival for the longest possible time for oneself. Here we have individually expressed fully. Here we have individually expressed fully. So the urge to one's survival. An example would be what requires one's survival is to work, to educate oneself, to learn. Without these things or these modes and transition from childhood upwards, that individual cannot survive. So that's the first, the urge towards the individual existence of his or her survival as a being. The second dynamic is the urge towards existence as a future being, a generation. It has 2 compartments, okay? Firstly, the sex compartment, and secondly, the family unit compartment, including the rearing of children. So for the second dynamic to work, you have to have a partner, and you have to involve in a sexual relationship and with the next mode of family and rearing children, because that brings about the second dynamic of survival in the second dynamic. Without that contact with your partner and without not rearing children, your existence as a human being individually cannot continue, and it continues through your children. So that's the second dynamic. So the first dynamic, the urge towards individual survival. A second dynamic, the sexual dynamic and the family dynamic and the rearing of children to bring about the continuation of your survival. The third dynamic is the urge towards survive as part of the urge towards survival as part of a group, with the individual himself furnishing this motivation, any group, temporary or permanent, okay, political or social, is part of the third dynamic, and each one is a third dynamic, meaning after rearing children, family then rearing children, you have to have group, community, socially involvement for the survival of your family. So your family, procreation of your family is to have a social interaction with other family. Because why? You can't procreate against yourself, and you can't socially be just subdivided to a particular entity on your own. So you have to socially interact with others and that brings about the survival of groups, socially, community, and that is the third dynamic. Okay, the fourth dynamic is a survival through man as a species, whereas the black race would be considered a third dynamic, or races of man together would be considered the fourth dynamic. Okay, so the black race itself, me being black, all our race is class of a dynamic. Okay, consider the third dynamic, but then considering other races, that brings about the fourth dynamic. So races are surviving between each other, survival, black, white, Chinese, Indian, and that brings about the fourth dynamic. So you can see where it's moving. The fifth dynamic is the urge towards survive for any and every form of life, and that means human beings, animal, insect, plants. These are all different forms of life. These would include all living things, whether animal or vegetation or anything directly initially directly motivated by life. So where life has an influence on it for its survival. It is the individual's effort to survive, to make life survive. So we as a human being survive with each other, and for our survival, if the animal kingdom was to take over the human being or try to take over the human being kingdom, we would fight against that, being human beings together against another species trying to take us over. I mean, just like another being from another planet came to Earth, we ourselves, for our survival, will come together and socially interact to fight off that species trying to take us over. So that is the fifth dynamic. The fifth dynamic, urge towards survival for any and every form of life, against, with, in conjunction with. So that is the fifth dynamic. And so in my next video, I'm going to cover the other dynamics in regards to the total of 8 dynamics. So I hope this is clear. You need all dynamics to function, and for human survival, for our own survival. So I'll see you in my next video, and I'm out.